Welcome, welcome, welcome. On behalf of ASICS, I am so excited for everyone to be here during our Accumulation Move Her Mind event. For those who don't know me, and I'm going to just say some of this is repeated from this afternoon, so some of you have heard this before, so that's good. Just play with me. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat Ayers. I get the privilege of leading this amazing U.S. marketing team here at ASICS, and we are super excited to be here tonight. I think one of the biggest things with ASICS, not everyone knows, we are actually an acronym from the Latin phrase anima sana and corpus sano. What does that mean? In a sound mind, a sound body. Ultimately, everything we're about is about here and here, all working together. And that's really when we're here today to talk about Move Her Mind. That's what this is about. And it's funny, when I say we, there's a lot of we in this room. And it actually started back 2023 in Paris. Sometimes I'm like, is this my life? Yes, it is. In Paris Marathon, we brought a group of wonderful women who's out in the audience today. And what did we, oh yes, thank you. Some of it first time marathon during Paris Marathon. That's not a bad stat to have. And what we did is we talked about the female consumer. Yes, we stared into each other's eyes. I know Kathy loves this more than anyone. And then what happened in 2024, we came back. We have Dr. D in the crowd who definitely helped lead off an amazing research study that was really about the gender exercise gap. Yes, there's a gender exercise gap between men and women, no question. I'm not going to go into the stats of what that is. I have men in the room, but let me tell you, you have no idea what those are, okay? But that's what tonight is about. And then we came back in 2025 with so many amazing partners here in this room across the country, and we talked about what those barriers are. We talked about, through women and communities like this, how we can look to solve and talk in conversation together. And that leads us to today, because that's what today's about, is to continue this conversation, to think about community, to think about connection, and recognize we have so much more work to do, but there's going to be a lot more moments like this together.
I'm going to welcome up everyone, sorry. Here comes the ASICS elite athletes. I'm just going to assume you guys are sick of hearing about the Megs at this point, so we will skip our introductions and move straight on to these incredible women. So, Makenna, I'll start with you. Just give us a rundown of who you are and where you're from.
Okay, so my name's Makenna Myler, and I am one of the distance runners for ASICS. I actually grew up about an hour south of here in Orange County, but I'm currently living in Utah, training in the mountains, getting my soul crushed. But I'm kind of known for running a mile pregnant about 10 days before my first kid, 2 or 3 weeks before my second kid, and I ran 5:25 the first mile, and then I ran 5:17 for my second kid. Yeah, that's me.
My name is Taliyah Brooks. I am an Olympian, world championship bronze medalist in the heptathlon. I currently live and train and am also getting my soul crushed in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Hi everyone, I'm Val Allman. I never expected that my path would lead to spinning in circles, but I am a discus thrower. I was born in Pennsylvania, then moved to Colorado, went to school in California, and now I'm a proud Texan. And I'm really fortunate to have won the past 2 Olympics.
Okay, I have to add, like, the most graceful circle spinner you've ever seen. And it's probably the strongest.
You all saw her shoulders in the height video. Yeah. Yeah, so we want to have a little fun here to get started.
at least as the dietitian would think is fun. So tell us, what meal do you celebrate with after your event or your races? We'll start back this direction with Val.
Ooh, I am a lover of French fries. Honestly, that's just like my easy go-to. Wherever you are in the world, you can find some damn good fries. So that's me.
I think I've turned into an ice cream girl. So I said earlier, if I do really good in my repeat 400s, I get ice cream in the middle of the week, and after a hard track meet, I'll get some ice cream.
I'm a marathoner, so I actually get to celebrate before, during, and after. It's like constantly consuming sugar. I should be maybe worried about my teeth, but I will say I'm a big fan of ice cream, but probably more like chocolate chip cookies before.
So we also love to start with your start. So Makenna, how did running enter your life?
Oh man. So I would chase around my brother a lot growing up, and I don't know, I was kind of that weird kid in junior high where when they said, it's time to run the mile, I was like, yes, that's me. I'm very excited to run the mile, and everyone else is trying to hide in the locker room. And so that, I'll tell you the story. So I ran pretty decently, and we had this dirt track, right? And if you broke a 6-minute barrier for women, you got this pink shirt, and if you broke a 5-minute barrier for the boys, you got this black shirt. And my older brother had gotten the black shirt, and I was like, I'm gonna get that black shirt. Like, I want that black shirt. And the first time I ran it, I ran 5:59, and I started hearing whisperings, and they're like, the PE teacher gave it to her. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so one of my friends who was older, he's in 8th grade, he's like, I'm gonna skip my health class and I'm gonna race you in the mile. And we had a showdown where his whole health class came out and watched, my whole PE class was watching, and it was me and this kid, and I ended up shattering it that day because he pushed me, and we ran 5:43 or 47, I think, at 7th grade. So that's kind of where I think the high school coach noticed a little bit, and he then also pulled me out of soccer practice when I entered high school, made us run this 2-lap race. I only had soccer cleats, so I was barefoot. And I was lucky because the girl in front of me, who was faster than me, had asthma, so she dropped out. It was me. It was all me. So they were just little moments that kind of kept adding up. And they kind of kept saying, like, you should continue this thing. And those are kind of the fun 2 moments.
That's incredible. Yeah, good luck, Taliyah, following that up.
Yeah. I was not the kid that was excited to run the mile. It was a little long for me, but for myself, I grew up in a big family, lots of sports, very humble beginnings. And my dad always told us, y'all got to go to college. We can't afford to send you there, so you got to do sports. You got to go to the military, something. You can't be here after your senior year. So we really use sports as a way to pay for our education. And I hated track. I hated running. I wanted to play basketball. Even my junior year of college, I was still trying to get on the basketball team and not be on the track team. But my dad would always tell me, like, running's going to change your life. Track and field's going to change your life. That's your gift, and blah, blah, blah. And here I am, literally, like, living the dream. So I was running away from track for the longest, and now I've embraced it, and it's literally changed my life.
Yeah, I really feel what Taliyah said. I think, so much of your work can become your identity, and I really love what I do, and I feel proud to be a discus thrower. Growing up, I had an older brother and was just tortured, he brought the competitiveness out of me, no matter what it was, bringing in the groceries, running up the driveway, it did not matter. Like, that fostered that in me. And as I got older, dance really became my passion. And I was part of a studio and on a competition team. And I started to have awareness that it's really hard to go to college for dance. And my parents started to encourage me to do kind of more sports things. So when I got to high school, my brother was on the track team, and he convinced me to come try out. And I tried a bunch of things, running, not for me. Tried the high jump, and eventually the throwers had their annual spaghetti dinner. And anybody that tried throwing got to go to the dinner, and that just got me. And And I found that I had a knack for it. I think all those years of dance, it kind of felt like choreography of how I moved my body and the rhythm to it. And it really just took off from there.
So we've talked a lot about community on all of these panels throughout the day today. So we want to hear a little bit from you guys about like who was instrumental in your community throughout your success from collegiate to pro, and what type of impact did they have on you and your life?
I'll start. I guess I'll say first my family. I think they've always been there. They've always supported me. They've always pushed me, even when I felt like things were not possible or things that I was not good at when I wanted to stop running track. And then also my coach. I've been with the same coach since I was 18. I went to college at the University of Arkansas, and he's still my coach to this day, and I'm 30. So I think my coach, he wears a lot of hats, and I've been very fortunate just to have him by my side through all of the trials. And I'm a believer, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention my faith and the part that has played in my life.
Yeah, you know what? So I will add on a little bit to my story. As I continued to run, I kind of had this success right in the beginning, and as I've continued to run in high school and college, I matured. And things did not work for me. I wouldn't say I was one of the best runners. And so I was very inconsistent in college. And so for some of you who know my story, I actually ended up going pro after my first kid because I just had a myriad of things that weren't working for me with the process. But to your question, as I was just continuing this pursuit of running, because I genuinely enjoyed it. I love that you asked this question, because I remember people asking me, like, why are you still running? What are you doing? And this is, post-college. And I was like, I love the people I'm meeting. And I was like, I love the opportunities I'm seeing. I grew up here, right? I came back to California, and George Chavez helped me out, and he started this club called Valor Truck Club, and I still come back to them this day because of the community he has created, even though he's not my coach. And that was huge because he created this atmosphere where they wanted to excel, they wanted to enjoy running, right? And I mean, as women, I think it's kind of funny with distance running. I don't know if you guys feel this way in your sport. Well, if you're not going fast, you're talking. And so there's a lot of bonding that's happening, right? Like you're doing your easy runs, you bond and talk. If you instead of going to lunch, you're like, let's go for a run, and you're talking. And so I feel like that creates a lot of connection, a lot of community. That's something that's really special about running. And so the community, even my high school coach, I still talk to him, right? And he still opens up his track for me. And it's just like, I have found, even going back to this story, right, where I ran this mile in PE in 7th grade, I had a hole in the top of my shoe. And this was the first time my PE teacher got me shoes, the next week. And she came and gave me shoes, and I was like, this is, it was the start of seeing how good people were in sport. And just, how much people wanted to give. And so I feel like the community really carries people, and just the connections you make. And I've experienced that time and time again with running. It's awesome.
I completely agree. I mean, I think, anytime you're pursuing a dream or something just new, it's really those one-to-one interactions that end up being some of the most impactful. And I mean, I think now when I reflect back on my journey, it was coaches, it was friends, it was mentors, it was the first time you end up in the local newspaper, all those little things that just give you that spark of momentum to keep going when it's hard, really end up playing a big role and lingering with you in such impactful ways. And I think it's one of the things I'm trying to do more of is figure out how can I do that back to others. It's so easy just to be caught up in your own head and be working towards your own objectives, but I think the more that you can be vulnerable and trying to share the things you're struggling with or listen to be open to what other people are working with, the more that you can end up accomplishing together.
And I'm just going to add quickly that, and not because we're at an ASICS event, but also I think for myself, ASICS has been a huge part of what I'm doing. I started off unsponsored. ASICS came in, sponsored me even when I was still injured. And so I think a lot can be said for having like a company and a brand behind you that believes in you, that once again sees things in yourself that you may not see, and how that can really like shape your confidence and give you a lot like going into a meet or going into a season. Or even, you know, if you're injured and you can't finish the year, having a brand behind you that's going to stick behind you in those times.
So another big theme throughout this series has been the barriers that women face. And so when you look back through your careers, what are some of those barriers and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, I still feel like there's so many barriers. I think it's really challenging in sport as a woman to figure out how to carry yourself and represent yourself. How do I be confident but not cocky? How do I be focused but not too intense? How do I be strong but not too muscular? I mean, the amount of unsolicited feedback and comments is ridiculous, let me tell you. But I mean, I think it really becomes an introspective journey, and honestly, in regards to kind of the last question, it really becomes so much about creating an inner circle. Who are the voices that you're going to listen to as you're dealing with barriers? And sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's professional, sometimes it's about a race that you want to do for fun. You know, it could be anything you're working towards, but there's always going to be barriers, and I think it's really about trying to figure out what you believe in and how are you going to use that to try to find a solution. I think early in my career, when adversity would hit or I would face a barrier, I couldn't get into a meet, or a man was getting paid more at a competition than I was, the first thing I would do is kind of like shut down, you know, like I didn't know how to respond to that. I didn't feel like maybe I deserved a seat at the table, and early on it was hard to feel truthfully like I did, you know. But I think when you find the right people that can help you see it with more clarity or more understanding, it becomes easier to fight. It becomes easier to stand your ground, to know what you can push for, to know what you're going to be willing to accept. And sometimes you realize you just don't want to be at the table. You know, if the barrier is that big and it's that uncomfortable and it's making you have to change to want to fight it, it's sometimes healthier to do the work to just realize, maybe I want to go in a different direction. So I think as a female in sport, it's complicated, but it's also a super exciting time. There's so many incredible things that are happening with new leagues, new funding, more races, more gear, or different things that are just customized for us, that it's a beautiful time to be in sport and really leaning into that as well.
So I'll talk about kind of the menstrual cycle and having babies, and a big part of my career has been figuring out that path. You know, in the beginning, where I was constantly trying to train like a man, and so much of the science was, you know, just how men train and how they respond to training, especially in distance running. And that showed. I changed every month. And it's funny how you can beat your head against the wall and not even realize that like the same thing is happening every month. Like I would be like, I just need to try harder. I just need to try harder. And then I would start my period, and all of a sudden I would get all this motivation and be like, see, I just tried harder, and I'm doing so much better. And really, it was like my hormones dictating, right, a lot of how I was feeling and how I was responding to training. And to be honest, I don't even change my training that much for my cycle now, but with it, just even understanding that and giving myself grace for each time, I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I'm so hungry and I need to eat, and I'm gonna feel so much better if I get protein in right now and more carbohydrates here, and that has changed my trajectory completely. Just understanding how I can train as a woman, how I can embrace those recovery periods. A huge barrier, as you guys, most of you might know, is having kids. And that I will also shamelessly plug ASICS and how supportive they've been through me having my second kid and they've been amazing. You know, you're a human being first, and you have to take care of. They live behind sound mind, sound body. Like, you take care of that mind. And there's just definitely spaces, right, where it's hard. You're trying to breastfeed before a race, or I was like pumping in a porta potty before Houston 2 years ago, and it was just awkward. And you know, so I think that, you know, they are coming up with solutions, but there's definitely still more to go in terms of that. And before on the panel, someone mentioned even creating a space where your kids can come play while you run around on the track. Like the childcare thing is relentless. Like, it's an interesting thought to sometimes be in, where I'm like, wow, I literally can't do anything unless someone is helping me. And I was talking earlier with someone about how she said, you know, like, how are you doing this? Like, how do you balance things? And I'm like, first off, it's nothing that's balanced in my life. I'm a very extreme person, but it's not me who's doing it, right? I'm a supported woman, and when we support women, they accomplish incredible things. And you know, if you don't have that community, you make that community. And I'm very into, you know, it's like, you don't have to do this, like, as a mother. Like, you need to build support, or you lean on your support, and they make that happen. And I think that's incredibly important for women to be supported.
I thought it would be easier to go last, which is why I was like, you go. And now I'm trying to find an answer. But I think for me, it's been like trying to find the balance, kind of what Val said about like being feminine, but also being really good at your sport. And I know especially these days with social media, a lot of people compare themselves. A lot of young girls, a lot of young women, just people in general, we're comparing ourselves to what we see online, or it's a really easy way for weirdos to get on there and be like, you look like a man. And you know, that happens all the time for girls, young women in sport. And so trying to find that balance. And for me, I like to express myself through like what I'm wearing, how I do my hair, and I don't know, I like to show that on the track. So I do wear some jewelry when I compete. I compete with my hair out, and the amount of people that tell me you will run faster if you put your hair in a bun, it's not true. I've tried it, and I ran slower, but I think finding that balance and learning how to express myself and not care about the opinions of other people and not compare myself to people on social media, I think has been something really big for me.
I'll still never forget. We had the privilege of going to the Paris Olympics with ASICS last year, and the first night we got there, we got to hold this one's gold medal, and let me tell you, it's pretty heavy and lovely. But competing on a world stage or stepping up to the line of a marathon, there's a lot of pressure involved with that. And then continuing to compete once you've achieved a certain status. And we know sound mind is a huge piece of ASICS. So talk to us a little bit about that mental piece and what has helped you, or some of the struggles you've had, and just kind of overcoming some of those things to continue to have the success that the three of you have had.
I think sometimes I've dealt with like the imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm not supposed to be here, or I'm here, but everybody else is better than me. And that's been something that I've had to really overcome. And I think when you do start to experience some of that success, sometimes it makes you still wonder those things, but I think it also starts to instill some of that confidence. Like, I do belong here, and there are people that support me and people that also think that I belong here. And so I think really having my circle has made a huge difference. I keep my circle real tight and real small, and those people like really uplift me in those hard times. And I don't know, I think it's all about just the journey, because I've been trying to tell myself, like, pressure is a privilege. First of all, if you ain't got no pressure, you ain't no good, and no one wants to be no good. But there's no pressure if you're not any good. It's just facts. We can say it, but I think just learning how to, like, I don't want to say deal with it, but embrace it. I think embrace it is the right word, and just be where my feet are, be excited to be where I'm at, always take advantage of the opportunity, because you never know if you're going to get that again. Like, a lot of things could happen. You could never make another team, or you could never get back to where you are. So taking advantage of the opportunity, I think, takes a lot of that pressure off.
Yeah, I think, it's really hard to hold yourself to a high standard. And I think, especially in sport, when you are prepping for something that like takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of discipline, and you start to pour yourself into it, it's so easy just to become so fixated on the outcome. I'm gonna put all this work in, and all that matters is how I do. And I think there was a long time where I got maybe a bit too caught up in that, And when you're winning, it feels good, But then the expectation becomes winning. And then you have to look in the mirror and be like, what happens if I don't win? Or what happens if I don't PB? And I really struggled when I got to that point. And I started to have a lot less fun doing what I was doing. So I think so much of how I focus now in dealing with pressure or competitions, or how do I view myself, is how do I find the joy in what I'm doing? And it's still a process, to be honest, but it's definitely made me rethink maybe just some of the ways that I think about what I do. I love going out to train. I love moving my body. I feel so much happier, after just exercising. I love going to a competition and trying a new restaurant, trying to figure out ways to make it feel like it's more than just this one singular data point that's going to happen, has been really helpful for me dealing with the pressure and figuring out how to make the journey meaningful. How am I celebrating this with people that I love and people that I care about? How do I create a moment that is going to be so much bigger than just this competition or a race or something that's just physical? So it's now made it, when I think back on my journey, it's so many of those little data points pop out, and those end up being the things that I love. Getting burgers at 2 a.m. after the Olympics because it was the only place that was open. It's like, in some ways that was like the moment, and it sounds like silly and ridiculous, but it's really about allowing yourself to make it more than just yourself when you're in those high pressure situations.
I'll echo a little bit of what Val's saying, where I have a lot of I'm just happy to be here energy. And so I get really talkative on warm-ups and, seeing all the people on the circuit that you get to see. I think for me, grounding yourself in gratitude and starting like that is always very helpful. Dina Cassier mentioned to me at dinner the other night, grounding yourself with awe and being so in awe of what you're doing. I think that is a beautiful concept as well. But something that really shifted for me that I love, it kind of started happening in high school. I was getting moments of this thought, and I feel like I've kind of solidified this practice where it is so fun to show up to races and view other people as catalysts for your highest performance, right? For you to reach what you can do. And for me, that is just very valuable. I find that very valuable because I want to find out what I can do. And I don't want to find out, it can feel very threatening to have someone else who is better than you push you out of your comfort zone, right? And be pushing you towards, where you might fall off. But I read somewhere that, competition means to honestly seek. And if you're going to be honest in your effort, then you are going to be pushing each other to the very end, and to really seek where that limit is. And I think that was really special to me to kind of figure that out and be wow, I cannot do this without these women pushing me, whether that's from behind or in front. It made showing up to races a lot easier and a lot more fun.
All right, so one final question for this evening. It's 2026. What are your goals and aspirations, and what are you most excited about?
I'll go. So I'm running the LA Marathon. I'll be back. I'm very, very excited, especially because ASICS is so involved and sponsors the event, to be a part of that, because I love being a part of the ASICS family. And so for me, it's hard. It gets scary to set outcome goals. I very much enjoy process goals that's possibly why I've done so well running through pregnancy, because I'm very into the feel and how running makes me feel and not necessarily how fast I'm going. Even though those goals are still important, they just will never be more important than the process goals, right? And I think I just want to lean into that more and make sure that I'm staying focused on the process. Like Val mentioned, it's a process, continuing to focus on the process. It can be, it's very easy to get wrapped up in the outcomes, but I would say just the next goal is LA Marathon and do well there.
Let's see, goals for myself. We have Indoor Worlds in Poland at the end of March, so I'm going to go there, compete in the pentathlon. But outdoors, I compete in the heptathlon, which is 7 events, and I think on the track, one of my main goals is to build up some of those events as best as I can. We don't have a major championship outdoors, so really it's looking towards 2027, 2028. So using 2026 to really work on some of those and bulletproof them, if you will, going into the meets next year and the year after, obviously LA. And then off the track, like I'm just trying to live life. It is a short year or an off year for track, so it'll be a shorter year for myself. So I'm trying to get into some things off the track. Like I said, I like to express myself through style, so I may have come a little bit overdressed, and I really don't care. I want to get into some things off of the track, like in the shoe world, in fashion, those types of things.
She looks so good, she makes us feel underdressed. Come on. I am so excited for 2026 because I'm getting married. So the wedding is in 2 months, so I feel it's coming up quick. But I cannot wait. And then I think, discus it's kind of a niche event, and it's, I think, one of the things that's really exciting in my little niche sport is the world record was set in the 1980s by an East German, and that mark has been so unattainable for decades and decades. So there's a new throwing place in Oklahoma that's known to have these perfectly windy conditions. So I'm really excited to go there this April and see how far I can throw. So I think it's one of those things that it's so aggressively ambitious, but I love being a little delulu. I think you got to do it. And I'm just excited to really attack that. So it's going to be a really fun 2026.
Well, we want to thank these incredible athletes. I think we could sit up here and talk to them for hours, right? They're just so inspirational. So I hope that you all took something a little away special from this panel. And we also want to thank you all for being here with us tonight on your Saturday afternoon and evening. And we invite you to mingle for a moment and head out that way. And if there's food out, go ahead and eat it. And, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And thank you again so much for coming.